Welcome to Ditch Diggers Dialogue, Volume 32. My name is Ashley Hudson. I'm the Director of Member Engagement for the Heavy Construction Contractors Association, and I want to thank each and every one of you for joining the call today. By being here, you are showing your dedication to safety and preparedness, as today's session will cover unfortunate but possible incidents such as workplace violence, law enforcement raids by ICE, and other cases of on-site physical injury. Gonna mute some people real quick. Awesome. Construction companies need to have a plan in place to protect employees, protect the business, and know how to interface, cooperate with law enforcement should they arrive on your job site. Okay. To present best practices today, we are joined by Mr. Eric Wojtkun with Focal Point Coaching of Loudoun. Before joining Focal Point Coaching of Loudoun, Eric spent 20 years with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, where he served as Crisis Management Coordinator and National Security Supervisor. In these high-pressure roles, Eric empowered agents and senior executives to lead through major investigations and critical incidents, cultivating decision-making excellence, strategic coordination, and composure in the face of adversity. His ability to bring order to chaos and guide teams through disruption translates seamlessly into his coaching methodology, helping business leaders handle their most pressing operational and leadership hurdles. With his guidance today, we hope each of you will walk away with standards every construction company should be implementing in the case of unforeseen events. During today's session, we ask that you keep your microphones muted until we open the floor for questions. But if you have questions or thoughts as we move through the presentation, I encourage you to type them in the chat box as we go so they can be addressed at the end of the presentation. So thank you all for indulging me in the brief introduction. Now I will turn it over to Eric to get started.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Built to last or built to break. So I appreciate the opportunity today. If you can go next slide, please. Make sure I'm moving myself. So, hello, I'm Eric Wojtkun, the owner of Focal Point Coaching of Loudoun. I'd like to thank the Heavy Construction Contractors Association for this invitation to speak today. I'm blessed with a crazy and fun life up to this point. I have a wife, 6 kids, age 28 to 8. They've gone with me across the country on this journey, and it's been wonderful. So I'll speak more on a whole bunch of other items in just a few minutes, but before we start, I want to just clarify the difference between a coach and a consultant. A consultant is someone you hire to come into your business, fix a problem, and then you don't want them to stay on the payroll. They have to leave. Many times, and the usual complaint I get with consultants, and I was one for 18 months after I left the Bureau, was you build a project and then you leave. And you don't necessarily have the support organically internally to keep that project running. That's a consultant. That's not really what you want to do. You want to be able to coach people. In my world, what I want to do is coach, and my job is to make you and your company its best self from the inside out. I know you're the expert on your business. You are the one who gets things done. Your teams are the one that make all the little parts happen, that make the organic whole run. Your development into your best you and doing things you never thought possible with joy and control of your personal life, those are my products. That's when I leave, you can keep going further and faster and better than you ever thought you could before. That's what a coach is versus a consultant. So with that out of the way, yes, sometimes I can pull a consultant trick out of my old Army kit bag and see what's in there and see what things I have to share. But it's always better when you're the one empowered and driving the innovation inside your own company. So a bit about me. I did graduate from West Point in 1993, and I was blessed to serve in the U.S. Army Infantry for 9 years. I got to go to Germany and served in Bosnia with the first rotation of the implementation force, pushing the sides apart, establishing the ZOS in that key time of the winter of 1996 into November of 1996. Came out of Germany, went to Fort Benning, stole a wife from the Army hospital, and ended up at the 101st and had a rotation over to the Kosovo force on the 3rd rotation. There, I still kept vehicles running. We protected civilians on food convoy runs, It stopped a lot of crazy threats, riots, um, and it was just a wild 6 months of a deployment. Not what the guys had to face in Iraq and overseas, but it was a good tour, and I learned a lot. So I finished up my last 2 years in the Army, coaching and teaching younger captains in the high Mojave Desert for over 20 months at the Army's premier training center of Fort Irwin. That's where I came to love coaching and helping people become better, to make them look good. When their bosses rated them, I always wanted to make sure that they left looking like they were promotable, and at the top of their group, because that's what you need in order to stay in the Army and make it to retirement. And that was the greatest honor that I had, was serving with them. So after 9/11, I wanted to try a different way of serving my country. So yep, flip to that next slide. And I joined the FBI. So over 20 years, I moved 4 times. I served in 3 field offices. Uh, I worked out of the Maryville, aka Gary residence in Indianapolis. I worked out of Washington field office and the Atlanta field office. I served in 3 different divisions at headquarters as a supervisor. I knocked down doors of drug dealers in Gary. That was an interesting way to start my career. I caught cyber criminals before we had cyber agents, and we had an official way of working it. I got to run cases against the Klan to protect civil rights. I worked public corruption, prosecuted cyber fraud against companies that was taking place against victim companies and companies that were taking care of other people. I worked national security threats and chased people who were stealing secrets online. I supervised weapons of mass destruction investigations. I chased spies, halted shipments of dangerous components to our enemies, and literally worked every violation in all the component divisions of the FBI. I finished up at the Pentagon as the senior rep to the Department of Defense. And so, let's go to the next slide, please. So even though I was not in the FBI in 9/11, 9/11 did shape the entire crisis management philosophy of the FBI. On 9/11, the FBI's culture was like it always was, focused on individual case agents. Our large cases, we would work through brute force, adaptation, some amazing heroism. If you follow up with me, I will tell you the true story of how incredible heroism solved the case of the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. When you hear it, you will just be amazed at the heroism it took to catch those bombers, and a very smart agent who understood how a bomb blast works. 9/11 obviously, though, shattered everything we'd done before. When the World Trade Center went down, lots of people don't know, but next door and the unified command center for all communications in the city for all the law enforcement went out as well. DC was overwhelmed. If you remember, if you were back here on that day, cell phones crashed, everything was out. In the nation's largest field offices, New York and Washington Field, we're locked in a gridlock. We're locked in gridlock, worse than the Beltway in rush hour in a snowstorm. Thousands of leads poured in, fragments of planes, manifests, and each needed evaluation by agents, analysts, scientists, follow-up subpoenas, you name it, the whole works. We had no serious computing power, and we were routing the entire large investigation literally on triplicate forms. And that was carried by paper and taken to somebody to transcribe it into the computer system. And oh, by the way, the forms didn't match up completely with the form that was online. So some stuff got lost. And we had people who were interviewed 5, 10, 15 times by different agents. And the FBI lost a lot of credibility. But it did get fixed. It did get worked out. And after 4 months, and for some people 6 months of not going home for a weekend, the cases started coming to a close and follow-on cases opened. It was brute force learning. Director Mueller came over to the field office in those first chaotic months, saw paper flying, and asked why people weren't networked in computers and said, fix it yesterday. Next slide, please. So when I arrived in 2006 in Washington field office, barely off of probation from Gary, Indiana, I was put in the command tactical operations center of Washington Field. I was ticked. I wasn't working cyber cases. I thought I'd finally made it to the big leagues. I'd go chase the big bad guys. I'd finally do something important. Instead, I was in an admin division, working a day shift, working a night shift from time to time, just taking complaint calls from anybody out there and waiting for the next big one. Well, that initial impression of me soon went away, and I found it to be one of the best assignments I could have ever asked for. In response to 9/11, Washington Field Office had two squads built. One was a tactical response squad with all of our tools, all of our special agents, the bomb techs, a SWAT, everybody who would run out and handle the incident site. And the other was the command post squad. That was the squad tasked with figuring out how do we manage this massive deluge of information. And it was here that all my Army training, the cyber training, and understanding of running cases and what a case agent needed to succeed from my time in Gary, Indiana, all synthesized. Old paper response systems was gone. In its place was a new piece of critical case management system called Orion, and it stood up. Okay, it's not what we know as AI, but when the data went in, the deciders got to decide, the leads got cut, information went out to the field, leads were covered, completed, and returned for further review. 19 years ago, it was the cutting edge of tech and automation. I trained case agents, their backups, third shifts. I learned how to maximize people in different jobs based on their capabilities, not time rank. Failure was never an option when we showed up there. I stayed up one day because the supervisor let me handle the continuity of operations plan. What happens if the building actually gets bombed itself? Well, I had our employees grab the radio, our special radio that we only had two of, and evacuate that down the stairs using a nice little cantilever that we built and taken out to our offsite and tested there from an antenna that I had set up. I stayed until the wee morning hours because who's going to shut down your computers in the middle of the day so I could find out how does the email work if all these computers are down? Where is our software? Where are our local files saved if our local servers are down? Nobody knew. Nobody could tell me an answer. So I had to stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning and test it for 3 hours. It was a blast. But that's what I did to learn how to make it work and build out that operations plan. And then I had like boring jobs, like how do you resource this building so that you put computers in the right place? You have a room where you can maintain unity of command for 50 case agents or 50 leads agents and the case agents up in another room. How could you get the computers where they needed to be? I kept doing that, and I was rewarded because our leaders at that time and at that place rewarded innovation and testing your innovations before an incident happened. My teammates were top notch. They could handle radios. They could solve problems and look at the sub problems that we were dealing with and create their own solutions that we could validate. It was a blessed time to be on that squad. You don't get that type of leadership in every place you go, but it's the key to success and resilience in any organization. But 2 days before the bomb inauguration, I also received a blessing of mentorship. I had a coach. His name was Supervisory Special Agent Mike McCoy, God rest his soul, from the Headquarters Crisis Management Unit. He looked at me and said, "Show me your communication flow plan. I'll show you what one looks like in just a minute." I showed him the 14 streams of information on how I thought it would work. He said, "Great, but this will fail." Me and all of my hubris was like shocked, rocked to the core. It's like, I just spent days trying to figure this out. It should work. But then he calmly coached me for 2 hours, step by step by step. And when he showed me what was going on, I learned things I had never anticipated because he pulled from his deep well of experience and made it understood to me why I had to modify my thinking, why I had to grow. It was the best coaching I ever received. Well, it worked because 24 hours later, reports came in on a shift that there were 100 Somalis coming all the way from the Northeast, from the Boston area, coming down to kill Obama. I don't know why. Clan wars? I don't know. They were just upset. And he was the president-elect. So Washington Field Office went into overdrive at the touch of my fingerprints right on the keyboard saying, "The crisis response plan for Washington Field Office is activated. Squads report to." Boom. Right on time. Well, long story is over 200 agents came together. We chased down all 100 leads. It took 3 days. Everything turned out to be a hoax, but our file was right. Our organization was strong. Our briefing to the bosses was just enough to keep everybody from canceling events and canceling the parade and doing anything that would have made the inauguration less than it really was, which was a magnificent day. And Mike McCoy, after he coached me, he recruited me to go to the fly team that he was on, and many more adventures would follow. Next slide, please. So what I want to show you is this is like the type of thing that I would have to work at. So I would be there at the incident field office hub. It's not exactly right, but this should get you. So if something goes bang, you have a field management site. That's where you have agents collecting evidence or responding. You have a SWAT team of negotiators talking to somebody to get the hostage out. You're pushing information back and forth because information that solves the field management problem is probably back at headquarters. Just say, for instance, you got a negotiation going on with a hostage. One of the most effective things you can do is get mom on the phone. That can work for some people. If you need it, we find mom at the headquarters and we get that person on the line to the negotiator and we make it happen. Headquarters is headquarters. They're always bothering you. They always try to be a little bit too helpful, and you have to keep pushing back and keep the beast fed so that they know that you have everything under control. Whenever anything goes wrong, there will be a public tip line. We had 400 seats set up at a location across the country where if something happened, a major event, we would have people call the 1-800 number. And within hours, we could go from one lead. And during Boston Bomb, when we turned on the public tip line, we had over 2,500 leads we had to process when we came back and checked the computer 6 hours later. People were working them all night, but that's the type of tip line you're working on. Regional office, just because it happens in Washington doesn't mean you're not talking to Richmond, Baltimore, Seattle, Minneapolis, Dallas. You'll be talking to all of them. Oh, no, by the way, you have your multi-agency coordination. That's just a sampling. U.S. Secret Service is supposed to be there, not USCC, CBP, ATF, Commerce, DHS, DOD, everybody. In DC, if you have to coordinate with police departments, there's 49 as of 2008. So that's just the hub. Next slide, please. So remember I told you about those 14 streams of information flow coming in? This is a type of funnel that you're going to have to make. And it's no different than any other crisis response plan. You have multi-agency intelligence. You have coordination. You have U.S. Secret Service, DOD. All those folks are sending lines in. Police offices, if you're DC, again, there are 49 as of 2008 police agencies in the city that would be possibly sending you information and reporting. You had public and field reporting, so all those people coming in, it all has to go into a central tunnel. It has to be converted into an intake file, and that intake file goes out. And oh, by the way, if it's a terrorism event or if there's any ties to national security, it's being compartmentalized in a separate file, and you have to find a way to get information from the non-public file, the non-class TS file, into your case agents so you can still act on it. That's the type of work that you're doing while you're building these investigations. So every time you see something happen out there and you wonder why it might take the FBI a while to synthesize a case and get it prosecuted, this is often the reason. Next slide. So I'm an infantry officer and I like things kept very simple. So this is one of the things that a sophisticated way of describing how to be constantly aware, analyzing, collaborating, and acting. No matter what you do or how you do it, all comes back to this very simple loop. It's called ODA. Observe, orient, decide, and act. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel John Boyd codified the simple observation during the Korean War in order to help Air Force pilots quickly make decisions in a dogfight. His way of thinking became standard practice for Air Force pilots, and it's why they became very successful in dogfighting during the Korean War. Remember, they were flying a near-peer aircraft, so they had to be able to observe, orient, decide, and act. And one of the little secrets of the F-86 Sabre was that it had a better gun sight than the old MiG-15. That's one of the two reasons that the ability to observe, orient, decide, and act was a split second faster on the F-86 because we had a better system and the pilots knew how to take an action based on what they observed. So This also helps your organizations make faster and better decisions in a rapidly changing environment, combat crisis response, or competitive business. This loop will be continuous, and you can see it happening daily in everything you do. When I coach any person or organization, I always come back to this loop. It's the Rosetta Stone of resilience. Just take a second and think. This morning, if you had to get up in your car and you drove, the light's going yellow. It's going to go red. I cannot stop before the intersection. I must stop, brake. The weather is frightful. I like it comfy and warm. I'm getting coffee and staying from here. Cheers. So, Oda is how you think and when you get to keep it simple, fast, clear, and decisive. Next slide, please. So, I threw this paper one in here because this is why you need professionals in the loop. This is a simple little diagram. I can sit down on the table and explain to you how a lead comes in, why you need an analyst and an agent to look at it, how the leads and the requests for information go out. They get assigned appropriately to the right person, the work analyst, the field agent. They gather the information, they write the report, and they send it back to the very same analyst and agent who are running the case. I put it up here because AI can't put it together. AI had multiple errors in putting this together. This is why a person can explain things or start mapping it out and making things happen even better than AI in some complex situations that have a lot of human involvement. And it wasn't one AI model. I used 3 different AI models to try to make a slide that would be really nice and neat and slick, but that's what we got. So why do you see an agent and an analyst in this? Well, whenever you want to make a decision on a case, there's 2 things that happen, there's 2 sides to every story. When you want to make a decision, the agent, or say your ops manager on your construction site, they want to get the job done. They want to close out the account. They want to figure out how they're going to get the concrete poured, how they're going to get the parts in, bump, 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 bump. Meanwhile, you have some analyst out there who's trying to make sure that everything's done as efficiently as possible. The agent wants to accomplish something. The agent wants to get something done. They want to hook them. The analyst, though, wants to know what's in the box. The analyst wants to know what inside that box is going to let me find the next lead. The agent just wants to get the information so he can get the next lead. It's a slight difference in nuance in how things go, but think about it in your own office. You have ops people, and then you have financial analysts. You have your lawyers. You have other people whose entire purpose is to make sure that the action has a positive result for you because it has a meaning. What you see here is no different than any business. Even though I was an FBI guy, this is how the world works. Next slide, please. So here's the hard truth. Enough story time. You guys work construction. You manage and own these companies building our future. It is absolutely fantastic work. I have a civil engineering minor, and I respect everything you guys do, but don't ever be in anything I design. You guys do it right, and I want to see you succeed, build, plan, and grow in the field. That being said, you already know the 3 biggest threats to your companies. 1, the catastrophic project, which sucks out all your capital. The one that takes the bad weather, the plans, the wishy-washy clients, changing the plans, you name it. That one catastrophic project which sucks the wind out of your company. You have your cash flow crises, and in those, like many other things, you live on leverage. Key special order girders. I remember I was always taught special order girder might take up to 2 years from the design to the request to being placed on order someplace and dropped off at your work site. So you had to plan out 2 years before you put that girder in to make sure it didn't arrive at the wrong time, too early, or too late and cause a work delay. And I also know you don't get paid until final acceptance of a project, or maybe it's just a balance or pieces of project get done and you get paid along the way. If there is a slip in the schedule, if there's a sticky finger client, that would never happen, right? You could cost you a fortune in paying off the building loans and whatever you're using, whatever finance tools you're using to finance that project to completion. You don't live on a huge margin. Don't let anybody think that. I know you don't. Growing too fast without systems. We all know what happens. It happens not just in construction, it happens in every industry that I've talked to. Opportunity knocks and you jump. Your success breeds more successes. Before you know it, you have 10 projects where you once had 2. You have no quality control. You have no extra auditors. You know, have no subcontractor vetting. It all starts melting away because you just need to get the job done. Eventually, something will fail because you just did not have the sufficient structure for building the larger success and maintaining your company's culture for quality products in place before the expansion. Next slide, please. So I just want to make this clear. If you're still in the construction business with all its challenges of the last 10 years behind us, you have your day job pretty well covered. I know you build systems that are making thousands of operational decisions across your company every day. You're sending them out to all corporate and field operations. You have a rhythm. You know what's coming. You know what you can foresee and most personnel changes. You know when contracts are awarded or when you might not get one. And your key partners are usually pretty stable. You have those people you trust real close to your vest. This is your day job. It's the one that you were dreaming of. It's your career dream, I hope. And I hope you're living it to the greatest of your desires and your heart's content. It's you driving your car on a highway, enjoying the ride with your loved ones by your side, maybe even with the sunroof open and letting the wind go through your hair. That's a great day. But a major incident changes everything. It means something went wrong or something impacted you sideways. Your organization now needs thousands of decisions per hour. Those leads have to be decided on and the data points analyzed and looked at so you can orient, decide, and act. You have unforeseen events appearing like hail in a thunderstorm. You can't control everything. You have to make decisions, delegate, and prevent paralysis in you and the extended leadership. This is a crisis event. I have 6 kids. I never had to go to Fairfax Innova during rush hour, but that would be my definition of a crisis event if my wife was in labor. Next slide. All right. You have plans, but are you prepared? So risk management is something we all do. We identify the risk. We identify things we can do to minimize the probability of adverse effects touching us. This is what we do to keep events left of the bang. The more left of the bang, the more we stay in our day job. This is why we put up, for instance, a lighthouse. So on a normal sunny day with smooth nights that we can see forever, or even in a cloudy night, we will still see that light, and we can go around the rocky shoals. Business continuity, however, is something we always plan and rehearse, and it's a bad day when we have to do it. In this case, something normal is not working, or something external shuts down our processes. This is what occurs to the right of a bang. Think of it now back in that boat. We see the lighthouse, and then we find the rudder stuck. It's driving us towards those very rocky shores. What will we activate to keep us in the boat alive? Will we add power to one screw more than the other to try to turn and pivot us? Will we rig a sail? Will we send somebody underneath the boat real quick to unfoul the rudder and find out what's wrong? Whatever we do in business continuity after the bang is what we do to stay alive. Next slide, please. So, resilience is a capacity to adapt and endure when risk management fails and business continuity has to kick in. And I'm not even going to say fails for risk management because sometimes it's just out of your control. Yeah. Who would imagine, we see airplanes, in 9/11, airplane comes out of the sky, risk management failed. There was nothing somebody in the Pentagon could have done about that at that point. So let me give you a quick and in that business continuity, that's kicking in. So let me give you a quick and funny story about the difference here and how we want to think of it. You all know the State of the Union address? Well, if you've ever been in DC, there's a whole portion that's like on a virtual lockdown. Yeah, well, it's an actual lockdown. Every U.S. executive, congressman, and judicial officer is in one specific chamber, the House of Representatives. So everybody is extremely concerned. Now, when the president walks out to his limo, walks out to the beast to ride down there to the hill, somewhere nearby there's a Suburban. And in the back of that Suburban, there's 3 agents sitting across from each other. Well, agents and a chief, all chiefs. We have the U.S. Secret Service police chief, or the local regional agent in charge for the field office. We have in the middle the FBI counterterrorism special agent in charge. And then next to him is going to be the chief of the Capitol Police. Each one of them have an area where they're supposed to be working. Secret Service job is to secure the White House, the route to the Capitol, and when they pass through, that suburban will go through because the chief of police is responsible from everything inside the Capitol up into the chamber and getting them back out. Now, it's pretty amazing. You put the three people there so they can communicate if something goes wrong. Well, the U.S. Secret Service and the Capitol Police, that's your risk management. They are managing the risk to everybody and doing immediate action drills to protect the principals all night long. But if something goes wrong, they secure the principals and they go the best way possible. And the FBI leaps into action. That's the resilience stick. We adapt to whatever is needed to rescue hostages, to catch the perpetrators as they leave. We will mobilize and we will go get them. We are the resilience stick. Everybody else goes back to protecting their principles. But every year in that truck, it's the same joke from according to the legends I've heard after talking to a couple of the executives. The FBI special agent in charge looks over at Secret Service, looks over at the Cap Police, and he goes, "You all better keep me all board all night, gents, because if I'm working, you all messed up bigly." Next slide. So what we know is an incident just doesn't cost money. In your world and in most worlds of a business, doesn't matter the industry, a critical incident cuts your cash flow, risks your debt, will have you lose key people, lose your customer trust, and will tarnish your institutional reputation forever. That's the bottom line. So how do we maintain resilience? Next slide. All right. Before we get going, can you click on that? Is it possible for you to click on that one and start that slide?
Unfortunately, it's not seeming like it's gonna play a video. I've seen this guy though; he's very funny.
Okay. Can you let me grab the let me put my slide in here and let me call it
Yeah,
up.
you're welcome to share screen.
There we go. Share screen. There we go. Can you see it?
We can see it. Yes.
All right. Come on, buddy. Oh. Okay. Well, that's not working. My apologies.
Embedded videos are
So,
hard.
yeah, just one thing we didn't have a chance to rehearse. That's a common plan issue. That goes right to it. All right. If you guys get a chance, log into him. He's hilarious. If you don't already, I subscribed. He's awesome. So first thing I want to talk about are, I'll just go ahead and keep going through the trench collapse emergency. How are we going to work on this? All right. So unfortunately, I had another video that was supposed to play. We'll see if it comes on. But what I wanted to have you think about is inside any scenario, what is going to be the company culture, the subcontractor vulnerabilities, employee accountability, OSHA regulatory, safety records. It's right there. I actually know your company strive for the best at all times, but I was an Army officer, an FBI agent. I know even people with the best of intentions have accidents, or sometimes you just get somebody who, is that 2% that needs to go. So it's not you, it's just the industry in general. So let's see if here we go. Oh, before we get going, if you can please, if you see something in this, please put it in the text notes on the side for the and just put in the text, some of those observations based off of those points we saw before. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and let you take back over on that one. And if anybody has any comments, oh, there you go. If anybody has any comments, just put them in the text and we can come back to it. Oh, Emily Braga, X 101st, 3rd Brigade Rakkasans. Emily, what I was leader Rakkasan. I had Delta 187 company commander. All right. Do you have it back?
Yes.
Oh, there it is. So inside that example there, what I wanted you to think about is if this guy was doing a subcontract for you, how is this going to affect you? How is this notification going to come to you? What liability are you going to have as the prime contractor and somebody goes out and does this? Those are I want you to think about that in the back of your mind. Things happen. Um, no fence protection. What does the lady watch with? Yes, good. Anybody else have anything? Thank you, Pablo. There were a lot of problems at that work site. 3 hours, and they had obviously dug pretty fast, and it was what they were going to do. So now, what are you going to do? What parts of the plan? What plans do you have to do in your emergency act? Flaggers missing to direct traffic. Yep. You guys are the experts. You guys have been working this your entire lives. So you guys are going to catch those things and make things happen. You're going to make sure those corrections happen. Trench box wasn't wide enough for the trench. Yep. Yep. So there was a bunch of things happening there. So if it did happen, if you think into your company and your emergency action plan elements, do you have a notification and command line? Have you rehearsed it? Do you know who's on site, who's going to be calling? Do you have your written prohibitions? Um, does everybody on that site know? So you have, some legal coverage when you're doing it. Scene control, as you pointed out there, who's the lady? What are we watching? Can you create that 100-foot safety perimeter so work stops, shut down the road, get the emergency vehicles and worker roles? Was everybody engaged in looking after safety? Information packages, no harness. Yeah, that was the interesting. I saw another video where they had the harness for the guy straddling a box and working down there to pull him out if necessary, or at least find him. Um, information package, folder, digital file, these post-incident steps, secure the site. These are things that and these are part of their training that goes on for hours and hours and hours. Um, my sixth child's godfather, he runs a company that does all these OSHA safety classes, and he was giving me an earful. It's like there's so much to learn and do to protect your people. Next slide, please. So when we talk about our response structure, just like I had to grow up understanding our communication structure, what's happening at your site? If this was your site here, if that's the incident site, you have company personnel, law enforcement, and emergency responders are going to come up, incident command, you're going to have a safety investigator come out. It's going to go back and forth. Incident site's got to be reporting to corporate headquarters. As soon as we know that there's an incident, even if it's a small one, we know that certain things are going to have to happen in the backside. And all of this is just what I know in corporate support after talking to a few people in the industry. Is your public relations marketing able to handle it? Are they ahead of the wave? Legal, HR, operations, logistics, what's going to slow down? Finance, how's this stopping a timeline? Insurance and surety. All those, what's going to get reported and how's that going to affect you? So these are some very important parts here, but it's just the beginning. Again, you're the expert, and inside a coaching plan, the idea is that you put down what you have, and then we critically examine each step. Sometimes having an outside observer, and usually having outside, just like Mike McCoy for me, refined my understanding of who's communicating and what information has to go back and forth. I don't think any company would lack having some benefits from talking to people inside this. Next slide, please. Now, again, you guys are trench diggers. You understand exactly what's happening here. Here's specific issues that should be accounted for by all those departments that you have and the people on site. These are the types of issues that those departments should be ready to work once this event happened. Is there a workers' comp? Is there CGL? Now we had OSHA on the scene. Where's the compliance insuring box? There it is, right there. Trigger larger fines. Environmental pollution, what happens if they did hit a line underground? Performance bond form language. All of these things go back to those departments. So once an incident happens, actions need to occur, or contingency plans and continuity of operation plans need to occur and run in the back of the business as we're working. And the information needs to come back up to the CEOs, but most of those decisions should already be made because you've empowered subordinates with the ability to make the good decisions for the company and start solutions moving forward as you brief a boss whenever possible. Next slide, please. Now, it's a lot to think about. You've seen this. Many of you have lived parts of it. And thankfully, 90% of our problems are little ones like on that site. That was really a little problem. But the last 10% of problems that are huge, those are the ones that can kill you and your company. And those are the ones we want to work on. So next page. All right. So when it comes to organizations, the model I like to go back to was from my time as an Army brat in Japan in the early 1980s. Living in Japan on an Army base in the 1980s was like living in Mayberry with Barney Fife walking down the street. It was really awesome. And it was also my first experience with this wild and crazy grass called bamboo. Now, what we know is that the strength comes from being a dense bundle of grasses. Each stand has great flexibility, and when bundled, that plant only gets more resilient. The roots pop up and are protected from all sorts of threats, and the roots really don't rot. You can flood it. It will not rot out. You learned you could hear it grow at night. It literally would pop, and you could hear it from your bedroom as it was growing in the patch nearby. You could cut it; it would be back within a few days. You could burn it, and it would grow back. Tsunamis would blow through, and it would bend and bounce right on back. Monsoons could not drown it, and you could use it for anything. If you cut it down and start using it, you could use it for tables. You could use it for scaffolding. All with good care and tough uses. This stuff is resilient, and in some cases, depending on how you cut it and use it, it's almost as tough as high-grade steel. And when I look at businesses, I want businesses to be as resilient as bamboo. I want your teams to compensate for each other's weaknesses and together promote their strengths. I want you to bounce back when times are tough, and when used in whatever product that your company produces, it will stand the test of time. Yep, bamboo is a great metaphor for what a resilient business looks like if it was a grass. Next slide, please. So when I work with teams working on a resilience operating system, this is what we look to do. What's it like to go from fragile to resilient? First, remember, I coach, I don't consult as much as possible. So the first coach is helping you become the expert in your own company with a self-audit. You're the one who knows the strengths and weaknesses, just like people are popping up over here, thanks to Pablo and TJ, and people looking at the slide and popping in. You know what is right, and you know what you need to fix. You know what might be weak and could be improved, and you also know what the minimum standard is going to be. So when you do your audit, you're actually going to know the status of your own company. Then what you do is you start working out action plans. What actually needs to happen when an event occurs? Who's going to come online? Who's going to start answering questions? When do you expect answers? What do you want those different components to do? What do you already have in place that you can improvise off of? You don't need to make an action plan for every single contingency, but you should be able to make something so that you can improvise off of almost anything. Then we can plan out what we want to do. When you're team building, we want to work on communication skills, learning to conduct those internal assessments of what's passing and what will fail without correction. Some of the things we know is that if you have a team and you're building it, sometimes you have a compliance officer who knows every single little detail and he knows exactly how the systems are put together. But the compliance officer might not be the one to make a straight up, fast, and quick decision when you're making something happen. So since emergency services, uh, so you want to make sure you have the right people leading the teams in a crisis that might not be necessarily the person leading in a day-to-day work. Since we don't need emergency services all the time, we need to build, test the services of our contractors. And while we do this, if there's something holding you back, an internal saboteur could be blocking your internal stage. The good parts of you could be stopping it, and you're not working it. So we need to work on activating your internal resilience. And finally, the tabletop to rehearse the situation. Next slide, please.
Hey, Eric.
Yep.
Just wanted to give you a heads up. In about 5 minutes, we're going to have to jump to Q&A, and I know there's going to be a lot of questions, but this next slide or two I know are going to be a lot very, very interesting. So just keep time frame in mind if you could.
Yep, real quick. So
Awesome.
just looking at the trench and ice raising construction. First, just put your personal opinions out of it. It's a disruptive event that could rip your company up. In both of these two, first thing we want to do is we want to find historical examples. Look at the ice raid in Florida. Look at the next one's going to be in Texas. 100 workers, 50 workers detained over documentation, primarily I-9s. You're going to have skilled labor, illegal labor force is going to be gutted, and nobody's going to come to work for weeks. It happened in Charlotte just earlier this year. Even legal immigrants may be delayed for hours because their paperwork's not in line. All this affects your contracts, payment timelines. You have to review all of this. Next slide. Look at it. When you conduct a self-audit before, as your next slide, please, next one. So the self-audit here is pretty self-explanatory what you need to do, and nothing showed up. Okay, so when you work on your self-audit, you're going to make sure you have a corporate intelligence. And H9 and E-Verify is working. You have your subcontractors ready to go. Legal and finance, bond reviews are going to be looked at. You have local resources. Have you communicated with the local law enforcement in the precincts? Have you tested your communications plan so that things work? Next slide. The bottom line is when you look at each one of your components, you create a generic template that can work between fast and between each work site and each one that you have there. You want to plug and play as much as possible. Next slide. When we build out our capability, we're going to be providing existing teams, conditions, review that staffing, communication exercises, and integrate. So what we want to do is develop personal resilience. And we also want to build out calmness. When law enforcement comes on scene, we want to make sure that everything is non-confrontational, because if they have a right to be there, if they're going to get their job done. And we want to make sure it stays peaceful, because if you think just losing the staff for a day will delay you, if you have a crime scene on that location, you might not see that scene for weeks because they have to clean it up. Next slide. And again, we would build out a tabletop exercise so that you think through all of these little issues. There are going to be issues that you know from those examples of the timing, where you're getting your workforce, how you're going to greet people at the gate, how will you just tell people to stay home if necessary, so that you just keep your workforce intact. Those are the things that you would work out at your tabletop. You might have a delayed start, however you need to do it. I have a great example from a police chief, but we won't do that. So next slide, please. So ideally, when you have that crisis response plan activation, your employees are live, they get stopped. The local managers report that critical incident team is activated. Your support team is out there. You have no violence, no confrontations, and no long-term criminal disruptions occurring. Your corporate local communications networks get activated. Back at headquarters, all your backstopping is going to be ready to go. You're going to make sure that if ICE follows up with you on somebody who is there with bad documents or counterfeit documents, I've seen them before myself, that your company is going to be protected legally from repercussions because that person lied to you. Ops, logistics, finance looks at the pay and contract requirements. All this will go very quickly, probably for 48 hours, and then you go back to normal. All those other parts, it's all the same, it's just a different scenario. So I know we got to go, but real quick, I wanted to show next slide. So I know I know we don't have time to do this, or we want to worry about it, but every dollar you spend on prep, according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, will save you $7 to $13. in the event. And if it's cyber, it's 250. And next slide, please. This is everybody's worst nightmare. This is ransomware. AI, I was a cyber agent. This is scary as all get out to any company out there. Next slide. You need professionals to be working with you on a daily 24/7 basis. Even if you're a small company, you need a fractional CISO. 45% increase in ransomware against construction. The average payout, 400 to 2 million. On a day, you'll know how much you're going to lose, but average in the industry is 150K. The bad guys know you have a timeline, and they know that you're going to be pressured to pay. Specifically looking down, cyber insurance is a specialty business, and these details matter. Next page. So the process is going to be the same, except now you got to add in, when you respond to a crisis with cyber, you have to remember you need alternative communication networks. Your phones may be compromised as much as your computers at work. Emergency manual systems and workarounds. How are you communicating? Cloud-based backups. Where are they? You're a small company, you still need something. Legal agreements, cyber specialists. Cyber specialists are going to work 300 to 500 hours to unlock your stuff. It's going to be a pretty big bill any way it goes. And also, insurance and bonds are very specific for different types of cyber threats. Make sure you look into it. And by the way, law enforcement is not your tech support for recovery. They have their own timelines on priority. It's your job to get your company back online from a cyber crisis. Next slide. So yes, resilience is not built in a moment of crisis. It's something built in over a lifetime with oneself, trusted teams, and strategically planned relationships. However, it's always going to receive its test when it's least needed or appreciated. Next slide. And okay, I'm sorry it took so. We got right there to the end there. Ashley, if you want to open up the question.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. That was very informative. Would love to open the floor if anyone has questions or thoughts they'd like to share. Welcome to come off mute if anybody has a question. And there's Eric sharing his contact information in the chat there. We will also share this presentation, and this has been recorded if you would like to view it again. I think everybody must just be really processing this information. Eric, any questions anybody wants to ask before we close out?
I know it's a lot of information to process and think through, but that's why you have to take those steps at the beginning as soon as possible to start thinking them through one step at a time. Small companies to combat ransomware. Okay, that list right there, Jonathan, that I put at the end, the first thing is you need to have somebody who's already helping you ahead of time. That's why even fractional management service providers are important to small companies, so that you can make sure you have an offsite and an online backup that can replace everything, and it's backed up on a regular basis, so you can just blow these people off and get back to work within a day or two. That's the biggest recommendation I would have, is the preparedness. And then make sure your insurance companies are ready to be contacted and the policies are written properly.
Great question. Anybody else? Okay. Well, Eric, thank you so much for taking the time and for also sharing your contact information for future questions. And thank you for sharing your expertise with us. So we will close out. And again, to the audience, thank you all for participating today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.